Good evening, and welcome into a new episode of Triple Coverage Podcast. I am your host, Lance Nelson, president of Built in Buffalo. To my right, Benjamin Shoup. To my left, Scott Casson. And the Bills are 0-2 in the past 2 weeks, looking to right the ship here with a showdown in New Jersey, as the title of this show would suggest. The Buffalo Bills will take on a newly hired head coach in Ulbrich and the Jets. But first, let's get some quick thoughts in and see how these guys are doing. Shoop, how's it going tonight, sir?
It's going well. As we were saying before the show, it'd be doing better if the Buffalo Sabres were also, a good hockey team. But we're talking about football now, so we're gonna go on to that, and hopefully the Bills can make this a good weekend for Buffalo sports in some capacity. It's looking forward to Monday night. They need that win, and they really just got to get back in the win column, and hopefully they can and give us something good to talk about instead of again being on the kind of the low end of things after losing to Houston and obviously Baltimore 2 weeks ago. So doing all right, and just ready to talk some Bills.
What's going on, Scott?
Yeah, no, not much. Kind of a disappointing game on Sunday from the Bills. The defense, struggled early, but they picked it up. The offense struggled early and decided not to pick it up. Just kind of a disappointing game. But yeah, like you said, on to the Jets Monday night, another primetime game before we have a little bit of a break in the primetime action, which is kind of nice. And I was thinking about it, Ben, when we talked about the Sabres. Who do you think wins more games between now and the end of the football season, the Bills or the Sabres?
I probably would, if I had to put money on it, I might go Bills, to be honest, after seeing the first 3 games. But man, hope it's the Sabres. But if I had to put money on it, I might go the Bills.
Right on.
Yeah,
That's
definitely
funny.
be closer than I think you want it to be.
Definitely.
All right. Well, let's talk just a quick thought about the Texans game, and what are your thoughts on whether or not the Bills are using folks correctly in this offense? We're probably going to talk a little bit about Curtis Samuel when we talk about usage, but start us off, Scott, and let me know what your quick thoughts are about using people correctly here within the offense. I'm assuming was mostly geared towards, but if you have others, you can comment on that as well.
Yeah, I'm just kind of confused with the roles that almost everybody on the offense has at this point, outside of, even Kincaid. I'm a little confused with his role too, because he's not a blocking tight end, yet we have him trying to set the edge on screens, and he's getting blown up by a defensive back that he has like 25 to 50 pounds on. So I don't understand why Knox isn't doing more of that. And then as far as the receivers go, like Matt Collins is a player. I know he's coming under a lot of scrutiny in the past week, just based on when the ball is in the air, he looks very lost. But he's a guy that the Bills definitely want on the team, as far as he's a great blocker. He's a great special teams player. He can be a solid possession receiver, but I don't think they're asking him to do the things that he is strongest at. He's not necessarily going to be the best downfield receiver threat. And that should, like the routes that he's been getting, I would like to see maybe MVS get or Curtis Samuel get, because I'm pretty sure Curtis Samuel can catch passes past the line of scrimmage. I'm not sure if Joe Brady knows that or not, but I think that he's allowed to do that. So yeah, just kind of the offense as a whole, I would like to see them getting some guys in better positions where they can be successful based on their skill sets. Like Keon Coleman, I think, is doing a fine job, but I saw an interesting idea that Steve Smith had, maybe moving him to the slot, getting a bit better matchups, being faster, because he's not the fastest receiver in the world. So maybe getting him inside to the slot, doing a little bit more stuff in there, and then like getting MVS some more downfield targets. Like the one, big target that MVS had was on a 3rd and 10. It was on a comeback route that was contested. Like that's not what MVS should be asked to do. He's not a strong-handed receiver like that. So yeah, I don't want to take everything, but it's just something I've been thinking about this week. Just like is the first 3 weeks, everything, it might have been masked by bad competition, but I think it was a little bit different. So yeah, like what do you guys think? Like is Joe Brady putting guys in the right spots to be successful based on their skill sets?
Yeah, I agree with Lance here that it's just some of the play calls and who we're targeting is interesting to me. Even, you've seen guys going downfield. I think you even saw Reggie Gilliam go downfield on a ball. So he didn't get targeted, but he was on his route was downfield, which just doesn't make sense. So I just think you got to mix it up. You got to put guys in positions where they can succeed. You got to use Curtis Samuel the way that you used him when he was in Carolina with you, Joe Brady. Like, he's got to use him that way, and you're not seeing it. And those shots that you are seeing to Matt Collins, I'd rather see him to, like you said, MVS or Curtis Samuel or just somebody else that is that's more their skill set. Even Keon Coleman, you're seeing a lot of the same type of routes for him. If you look even at his route tree, they're not really mixing it up a lot with him and just even guys like Kincaid and Dawson Knox. So I just think, I think you really just gotta mix it up and start putting guys into positions where their skill sets can be best utilized. And when you have guys being asked to do things that they don't really excel at, that kind of can put your quarterback in a position of like, okay, well, where do I go? Do I take the shot downfield if it's open to Mac Hollins? And when you take that shot, he can't track the ball correctly because that's not his prime skill set. Or, are you going to have to use Dalton Kincaid in a situation where you're not really putting him in the best position to win? So it's just it's kind of confusing to see what Joe Brady's doing, especially because it's up until these past two games, it's been relatively smooth. But this offense, we knew it was predictable. We said it 3 weeks ago. We were at one of the higher percentages of predictability on this offense. And now then you start playing better defenses and better teams, it's not going to work out that way, and it's going to become a struggle. I mean, the next point we have here, which I know we're going to get to, is a number one glaring issue on this offense. Even if you do look at maybe the final scores of some of the games, they don't look as bad as the offense may have actually been. So they need to switch it up this week, especially because I know we're going to talk about it later in the show, but with Cook not looking like he's going to play, Shakir not looking like he's going to play, you're going to have to really put guys in big positions to win and win their battles. And maybe that does involve putting Kincaid or Coleman in more in the slot. Maybe it involves putting Kincaid out wider instead of on the line more. We'll see what they do, but you got to switch something up. You can't keep running the same offense out here and expecting it to change.
Yeah, not even personnel usage. I looked at all the pressures per NFL Pro this season, and they missed a couple because PFF has it at like 59 pressures, and NFL Pro has it as 51. But some of the pressures were just Josh Allen holding the ball, and I have to dive into that a little bit deeper because I didn't necessarily watch. I was watching the offensive line predominantly when I was looking at this, so I have to see like what the receivers were doing there. They didn't necessarily, they're not bad, at least rated, and as far as like separation goes, really. So, I'm not sure that they're the entire issue, but Josh Allen does have the propensity to hold the ball and invite pressure at times. So there's that component to it. And he's been very bad. He's been very bad against pressure this year. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But the Texans had a spy on him with Al-Shahir multiple times. And then they also ran the same play a couple of times with this like play action left, naked bootleg right. I saw that just did not work for them. And they went back to it a couple of times. So they got to get rid of this stuff. It seems like people were clamoring for Joe Brady and that he was going to let the players run the plays they like. But guess what? All the plays that they like don't necessarily always work. So we're going to have to start getting some coaches to put their hands in this thing and just make some adjustments because they're running out there. I'm very excited that Brady can have this relationship with the guys and make things smooth. And when it looks easy, it's very nice and it worked well. But when you go up against stiff competition and really good defenses, it hasn't worked so well for various reasons, really. One, the interior offensive line, specifically Connor McGovern's kind of been ass all year and, needs to step it up and hasn't been rated well via PFF and just hasn't really when I was looking at those pressures, just a lot of those things, it seems like those guys, those three inside, get twisted up a lot when people bring pressure and bring some games on the line. They're not able to really make adjustments on one side or the other. So they got to get that together. Obviously, we were worried about the exchange with Josh Allen. That hasn't been a problem, but need to button some things up, I think, with the interior of the offensive line and preventing that pressure from coming up into Josh Allen's face so he can kind of walk up the pocket a little bit and have some more throwing lanes to be successful.
I think part of the pressure thing, just one last thing before we move on, just teams seem to be blitzing the Bills more. And I think that's because like the receivers aren't necessarily getting open right away. So they know like, hey, if we can cover for like a second and a half, we can get pressure. Whereas, in years past, even earlier in the season, just when things were working better, like they knew like, hey, we can't afford to blitz because someone's going to get open. But now like they're jam guys on the outside and don't let him get off the line. Like Josh doesn't have the time to get the ball out. So he doesn't have time for longer developing plays because blitz is there. I also think, you and I talked about this a bit, Lance, too. It's like he's almost like sensing pressure when it isn't there and like leaving the pocket when he doesn't have to. And that's because he's in his mind, he's trying to extend every play to find someone who's open. So yeah, I just don't know if guys are getting open at the same rate they were earlier in the year or last year and in years past, which kind of throws everything off if no one's open.
Yeah, to be clear, I was talking about pass blocking grade. I know John's in here talking about an 88.3 PFF. Pass blocking grades: 38, 51.6, 53.3, 55.7, and this past week was better at 70.3. But he's not been doing very well in the passing game, which we were discussing. So I saw that when I watched the film as well. It wasn't all him, like obviously, but there's just improvement to be made there, enough to mention.
Well, I will also say, when you look at the time to throw for Josh Allen each of the first 5 weeks, every week it's going higher, it's getting up more, and he's taking more time to get the ball out, which again alludes to more what Scott was saying of they're daring our receivers to beat them. The defenses are looking at our receivers and saying, we dare you to beat us before our pass rush can get to Josh Allen. And it even sometimes, to me, I know we were saying it before the show, it sometimes even seems to me that Josh he's getting a little bit uncomfortable faster in the pocket, and he's almost bailing out a little bit faster. There's a lot of times where you look back at the tape, if he waits a half second longer, just sits in there, somebody's coming open. Somebody's getting open, whether it's underneath or over the middle.
Or steps up instead of rolling out.
Yeah, but he rolls to his right, and we all love when Josh rolls to his right, but sometimes he's got to sit for just a half second longer and just let the play develop for that much longer, because it is taking the receivers a little bit longer to get that separation, to get open, if it even does come for some of the receivers. But you look at a lot of the plays, and it's just I'm seeing Josh get a little bit flustered a little bit earlier, even before the offensive line gets blown up or the offensive line gets beat, which I think just when you're looking at it makes the offensive line look worse. So I do think, yes, the offensive line needs to be better in pass blocking, but I do also think Josh needs to sit for just a half second longer, especially when you have a lot of mesh routes coming. You have a lot of crossers going on, because you just got to let those guys get open and see which ones the linebackers take in zone and what goes on there. So it's just it seems to be that this offense is kind of all over the place right now, again, because you're asking guys to do things that maybe they're not 100% comfortable with. And Josh is even realizing that, I think, when he's on the field saying, hey, these guys are not getting open because they're doing things that are not their skill set. That's not
right.
their best trait on the football field. So I mean, we'll see if they switch it up this week. And I think you do have to switch it up this week. You can't, again, like I said, you can't roll out the same offense, but to me, it's just a combination of not using guys correctly. Josh, I think, is even getting a little frustrated because 9 for 30, no matter what people say, as much as you can blame coaching and you can blame the receivers, 9 for 30 is also on Josh Allen, as much as people might not want to admit it. I mean, that is his worst of his career, and as bad as the receivers were and as bad as maybe the play calling was, Josh also had to be better. So I think there's a long season still ahead. That's the positive part. We're here talking about this in week 5 rather than week 16, 17. we'll see if they can put it together. And I think they can. I think that they believe in each other, and they'll end up putting everybody in positions that they feel more comfortable in.
Yeah, maybe there's some of it's just learning, trying to put them in other positions that to see if they can expand their horizons. But they're using who they got for what they want to do, and I'm not sure that the play design every time is lending itself to pressure. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. My segment this week was predicated around that, so I probably gave a little bit too much away here in the opening, but oh well. So it's a good topic to talk about, and we're going to talk more about that at the end of the show during my 1 minute. So moving on to some trade rumors here. Trade rumors heating up. It looks like around maybe some Davante Adams or Amari Cooper. Our guy Dave Myers suggesting some things around DK Metcalf, which is just more fun of saying hey, he would be great to have here. He looks unhappy. Let's get him over to Buffalo. But what do you think? And Shoop, you can start this if you'd like. What do you think about the trade rumors heating up, and what are your feelings on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, as much as people don't want to admit it, Brandon Beane he is pretty aggressive at the trade deadline. We've seen trades in the past, maybe not a splash of that makes the whole league go crazy, but he does like to make moves, and he will go and get up a guy if he really believes the price is right. But I know Scott said this off the record, so I'm going to give Scott the credit on this, but Brandon Beane will not go over the price that he wants. He will not spend more than he wants. And I don't think when it comes to Davante Adams or Amari Cooper or anybody that you're talking about in this trade market that you're seeing his names going out there, Doubs out there, he has a set price, and he's not going to budge, and he's going to let these teams know and say, hey, you can, play these games all you want. You can entertain other offers. But when it comes to Davante, when it comes to Cooper, they're going to get what they want. And if the deal doesn't come, Brandon Beane's not going to force it, which, as much as that might annoy people right now, down the road, it is good for this team, and it is good for this organization to have a GM that way. But when it comes to the trade rumors, I'm not going to believe it till I see it. And as much as Cooper may have terrible hands, according to a lot of people, he gets open. And I think that's the number one issue with the Bills right now is somebody needs to get open. And Amari Cooper does that. He's got the veteran experience. He's had 1,000 yards in seasons. He's a good receiver in this league. And if you can get him for a third, fourth round pick, I would think the Bills should do that, especially at his price. But until something gets serious, I'm in the boat of I'm not going to believe it till I see it, especially when it comes to a guy like Davante Adams. Amari Cooper, I might be a little bit more open to hearing rumors just because of how his contract is. But when it comes to especially a guy like Davante Adams, I'm not going to believe it till I see it, and until Adam Schefter tweets something out about it being serious. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, and if they do end up making a move. But I mean, I also think a lot of people are on the boat of Brandon Beane might just sit and say, hey, this has always been a rebuild year, and it always that's been it from the beginning. They said it in the over the offseason. This was a retooling year. They didn't want to go crazy because then they'll have money next year. They got 8 picks right now, including 3 in the first 2 rounds. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, I'm not going to believe it till I see it.
Yeah, I only believe news from 2 places, and that's Schefter and CTESPN. Those 2 always seem to be right. Yeah, there's been a lot of smoke. It seems like the Davante Adams stuff. We talked about it last week, and I would be shocked if it happens because Brandon Beane, yeah, he's aggressive, but he rarely makes the big time splash in season trade. It's last year, Rasul Douglas probably the biggest one he made because Kelvin Benjamin was so long ago that that wasn't even the same team then as it is now. And Rasul Douglas, they needed that. They literally did not have another starting corner to put out there. Other than that, Nyheim Hines was a nice kick returner piece there. So I would be very surprised if there was a move made. I think Cooper and maybe even Deontay Johnson may be a more likely target just because both of them are on a lot more friendly contracts. There's not as much of a buyout going on there as far as, converting the salary over. So they wouldn't have to give up as much. And I know people say Cooper can't catch, and he's had a couple of drops this year, but throughout his career, he's only averaged 5 drops a season. He can catch pretty well. I also have it a hard time hard time to judge anybody on that Browns offense right now for like not playing at their best, because like it's just like it's a dumpster fire of a place. So I wouldn't put that all on him, but yeah, I would be surprised if anything major happens. And yeah, like you said, Ben, like Bean knows what he wants to spend, and this year was always going to be kind of a transition year. And now that it's a transition year, everybody is surprised that it's a transition year. So I don't think they're going to give up more than what they want to going into next year when, you know, they're going to go all in again.
And the funniest thing about all this is like Bean's going to do his homework and like his due diligence on every possible move that the Bills can make. So it's kind of funny that like people are like, oh yeah, I heard he made this call. Like, yeah, he fucking made the call, dude. Like, of course he made the call. Excuse my language, but like, yes, he made the call. He made a lot of calls. He's making calls every single day because that's literally his job to do that. Like, that's what he does.
People think like all of these GMs aren't like friends that just like talk. Like you see it in Hard Knocks, you see it on the shows. Yeah. Like they talk every day.
It happens because he's going to turn over every rock, every leaf, whatever you want to say. He's going to turn it all over and make sure that he doesn't miss out on any move that could change the course of this team. And if it's something at the right price, like you guys mentioned, then it's going to happen. Like, it's just that simple. You know, if he can get these guys down at the right price, and he seems to be pretty good at negotiating with folks thus far and getting those certain folks down to the right price. But like, we talked about this kind of offline too, is that the Bills may not be just one player away from being a hands down Super Bowl favorite. You know, they may be more than that, and we'll see. You know, this team's also banged up. They also didn't have their full complement of weapons on offense, their full complement on defense. And so you can't expect the world without the full team on the field. I know that you still have to play the game and it's next man up. I'm not suggesting there should be any sort of excuse for that. It's just a matter of like, put it in perspective, put it in a realistic context of what this team can achieve with whom they have on the field. And people just expect this Sherman tank of a team to just go out there, regardless of personnel, and be able to beat some of the better teams of the league. It's like, no, like you saw their deficiencies now against Baltimore, and you saw, you know, now they're banged up on a little bit on offense and defense, and you saw how that affects them against Houston, even though they were right in it to the last minute, literally. And you know, we'll get into a little bit of that, I guess, during Scott's segment. I think I'll leave what I have to say now until then, because it's a little bit of that. So yeah, let's move on, I think, unless anybody has anything more to say about trade rumors. But let's get into Ben's 1 minute segment, and then we're going to get into the offense and previewing this Jets-Bills matchup.
Yeah, so this week kind of has to do with what Lance had said last week on his 1 minute, but it's just a little bit different here. So now the Bills are 3-2, lost 2 straight games. This next stretch is a pretty favorable one compared to the rest of the schedule, at least the next 3 games. So I just want to know what you guys think about the confidence level that you'll have in this team by the bye week. Bye week's week 13, so it's still a little bit of ways away. You got 6 games from now until the bye week. What does the Bills record have to be going into that bye week for you to be confident in this team going forward for the rest of this season? Now they play the Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs. For me, you got to win at least 4 of those games. I think that's a must, and I think you could potentially win 5. The Chiefs are really the only team that is a top-tier team in the league right now. The Titans are struggling. The Jets are struggling. Seahawks have lost a few after a strong start. Dolphins, we all know their story. And then the Colts have been kind of up and down. So I think you got to win at least 4 of those games, and then going into the Chiefs game, potentially make it a 5th or even a 6th if you can end up sweeping through. So let us know what you guys think. How many games do they need to win out of the next 6 for you to be confident going into the bye week for the Bills?
I think they got to go 5-1 for me, just with the schedule. I would be fine with 4-2 as well, but I really would like to see this team go 5-1 through these next 6 games. I don't think I'll lose confidence if they are less than that. If they went 3-3, I mean, if they go 1-5, then you know, gonna have that discussion. But like, I think a winning record throughout, you know, 4-2, 5-1, would expect 5-1 if things can continue to trend more towards the healthy side of things, if people do get back and are able to work their way through some of these injuries. So I would expect 5-1 record, but would be okay with 4-2 as well. And 3-3 after 3-3, then I'm maybe feeling a little more concerned.
Yeah, I'm in the same exact spot. There's 3 games there that in theory should be very very winnable, and then the Jets, and then the or 4 of those games, excuse me, that should all be very winnable. The Seahawks, the way they've been looking recently, like they're not like the same team they were in the first 3 weeks, but hey, you could say the same thing about us. So, yeah, the Jets game, and the Chiefs game, I think those are the 2 big ones in there now. But yeah, 4-2 would be fine. 5-1, and I'd say we're back.
Yeah, well, it all starts this week, and it starts with the Jets, which we'll get into right now. We're going to start with the offense. You guys know the deal. We're going to talk about defense, what they got to do against the opposing team's offense, and talk about what the offense needs to do against the opposing team's defense. So we're going to start with the offense this week. But I think everybody was shocked to learn this week that the Jets did move on from Robert Saleh. I think people thought, yeah, it was definitely a possibility at the end of the season they could get rid of him. But week 5 is a little bit early, especially compared to the average for teams getting rid of their coaches. And they're 2-3. It's not like, they were exactly 1-4, 0-5, and even their losses have been close losses. So Robert Saleh out, Jeff Ulbrich in. He is the interim head coach. He's going to try to get that job and secure that job going on. So I just want to know what your guys' quick thoughts are on the switch. We'll start with you, Lance. What do you think about Robert Saleh getting the boot?
Yeah, I guess seeing his mannerisms during the last Jets game, which I think was a primetime game, if I'm not mistaken. But
London
it seemed
game,
like,
so kind of.
yeah, okay, London, okay. It seemed like he had that sort of look, that things could go this way. I guess now hindsight, having seen that the things went this way, I could understand, why the look in his eyes was as it was during some moments during that game. If I may, I don't know if we're gonna. Nope, we're gonna talk about it later. Never mind. Well, no, I don't. I think they. Did we have that in there? Sorry.
Just bring it up.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett being there is new play caller is the better move of the coaching switch as well. But we'll get to that when we talk about the Bills defense.
At least they let him come back from London, or maybe he wishes he could have stayed there and drank a few pints at the pub or something like that. But yeah, you could just kind of tell it wasn't who Aaron Rodgers wanted there. And I know Aaron Rodgers is not the GM of the team, and he definitely didn't say that he wanted him fired. He made that very clear. But like even earlier in the season when they scored and like Saleh goes in for a hug and Rodgers just like shoves him, like you could tell there was something weird there. It does feel like they maybe fired the wrong guy because you couldn't like Saleh's a defensive guy. The defense of this team was most definitely not the problem, but they kind of fired Nathaniel Hackett, like we're going to talk later. So he's not calling the plays. So I wish they waited to fire him until after they played the Bills, just because, teams that after they fire their coach seem to have a little bit of like a dead coach bounce and play a little bit better. And I know that all the guys in the locker room really like Ulbrich. They showed that on Hard Knocks last year. He's a team favorite, so they're all going to be playing extra hard for him. So would have liked if they waited, but yeah,
Former player, so he's probably got that. He's probably got that going for him that he is, played in the league and things like that. So some guys probably have a big respect for that.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I said, wish they waited, but I can't say anybody's that surprised by it.
I will say that I don't know why this was a thought that came in my head, but just seeing Robert Saleh get fired brought me to how a lot of people want Sean McDermott fired and everything. And I know that might be a conversation we get into today, but just seeing that, do we want to be like the Jets and fire a coach right now? Probably not. Just take it from the Jets and just learn, hey, the Jets usually don't make good moves, and this move still to me doesn't make too much sense right now. It really doesn't. I mean, you're 2-3. The games that you've lost were closer scoring games, and it was most of the time the offense's problem. It was not the defense, like you said, Scott. It was not Robert Saleh's defense, who has been a top tier defense since he's been there. And that's really the move that shocked me. and then, as Lance said, that they did make a change at play caller, but is that going to make too much of a difference? I'm not sure, because Rodgers doesn't look the same. These receivers don't look like they're on the same page with him at all. And it's just, even Brees Hall's kind of just been struggling a little bit in the backfield. So it's really been the offense that's been the problem. And seeing Saleh, I think this was more of a culture change and a maybe locker room change, rather than, hey, it's really the football that we're talking about on the field. Because it was apparent that not just Rodgers, but a lot of the guys on the Jets did not really love Saleh. And it guess it was time that they thought, hey, we're 2-3. If we want this season to mean anything, it was more of a panic move, in my opinion. That's what I saw it as. It saw it as, hey, we just paid Aaron Rodgers, and we got Aaron Rodgers in here. He's back from his injury, and he's only got, a year or two left, two at the most, in my opinion. And it was just hey, we got to make the most out of the season, and it seemed like a panic move. So we'll see if it ends up working out for them. But yeah, I do agree with Scott that I wish they would have waited, just because you do see teams historically play well that first game after they fire their coach. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully the Bills can reel it in there and maybe even take advantage of some switches that the Jets aren't fully prepared for, and they're maybe a little bit up and down when it comes to being on the same page. So we'll see.
Yeah, first time head coach. I think McDermott can easily take advantage of that himself. And if you haven't done so, please hit the like and share buttons, folks. If you're on Facebook, like and share. On X, repost for us and give us a like. YouTube, hit that subscribe button on the channel, please, and give us a like, and share with your friends that way as well. Get us into the algorithm and better growing this thing. We got lots of great content here at Built in Buffalo, and appreciate everyone's support. We're brought to you by Buffalo Belia Sports and More. Check out their Facebook page, Buffalo Belia Sports and More, and get great Buffalo Bills custom player memorabilia. It's really cool stuff that they got. They made the helmet here over my left shoulder. That's really nice. And also the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo is Monster Energy. Go out and grab yourself some Monster Energy. Come see us at the Big Tree Inn during home games, and we'll be handing out free Monster Energy and have some games and stuff to play for free swag and different things like that. So with that, getting into the next thing, Ben, I'll let you kind of take this one away and introduce it a little bit. But yeah, a little bit of a concern going into the Jets on offense for the Bills.
Yeah, and the Jets defense, I mentioned just a minute ago, Robert Saleh had this defense playing well, like he has since he got there. They're the number 2 total defense in the league, number 2 in pass defense, number 14 in rushing defense, which on paper, I guess, is towards the upper half of the league, right? It's in the front half of the league, but still, it's not the best, and it's not the top 10. You're not in that range yet. So do you think, even with James Cook out, do you think they can run the ball successfully with Ray Davis, with Ty Johnson? Start with you, Scott. What do you think about the Bills running the ball without James Cook this week?
Well, the way the passing game looked last week and against another team with a good secondary, they're going to have to. They're going to have to establish the run. The Jets' defensive line is definitely built a little bit more to get after the passer. Like Quentin Williams in the middle, he's a really good player, but definitely a better run defender. Definitely a better, as far as interior defensive linemen go, definitely better getting after the passer than he is stuffing the run. Their outside guys definitely more get after the passer type than run stoppers. So, yeah, I think the Bills can. The Bills' offensive line has struggled, like we mentioned, but you would imagine that that's something that they're really going to be focused in on this week is, getting more cohesive as a unit, being able to run the ball. And I think we'll see a lot more Ray Davis. Ty Johnson, I don't really know if his role is going to increase a ton because he's definitely not built to get more than a couple carries, a couple plays here and there. He's never done that. Ray Davis may be more accustomed to it. Feature back last year at Kentucky. And then maybe even, Frank Gore Jr. gets a call up from the practice squad. I think a lot of people would be excited to see that. Don't know how much he plays, but, maybe he at least gets to dress and say that he played in the game. So, yeah, I'm excited to see Ray Davis and see what he can do. And if the Bills are going to win this game, they're going to have to do it do it rushing, just because the Jets secondary is definitely the strength of the defense. You're muted, Lance.
Classic. Forgive me. Been traveling all day, so I'm going to use that as the excuse today, even though I've done it every show. 8th right now in EPA per rush for the Bills, and if James Cook does miss this, I'd kind of be excited to see what Ray Davis could do in an expanded role. The problem with that is, would they use him in the expanded role, or would they go with Ty Johnson because he's the trustworthy guy that's been in the offense before? That's would be my concern, and I would hope that he would get the nod and that Ray Davis would come in, and I think he'd be able to handle it very well. So yeah, I think we could run the ball. The offensive line has done a fairly good job, and with the personnel on the Jets defensive line, I think we could move them a little bit and hopefully create some good running lanes this weekend, or Monday really. So I think that with or without James Cook, it comes down to the offensive line moving some people, and I think that matchup is favorable this week. And regardless of the running back that they choose to deploy as the lead back this week, they'll have some success on the ground.
Yeah, you guys know that I've been asking for it for weeks to get Ray Davis involved because, again, I'm going to say it again. The guy breaks tackles. The guy makes people miss on tackles. He's not going to juke you into the other universe, but he'll bounce off you and he will break tackles. So I really hope that they do feed him this game, and I hope to see him touch the ball 15, 20 times on the ground. And hopefully it's successful. It should be successful, especially with how the offensive line is playing in the run game. I really am excited to see how Ray Davis does this week. Last week, it was Dwayne Carter, who was another guy that everybody knows I've kind of been obsessed with since they drafted him. He had a great game. Now it's Ray Davis, his time as the rookie to be the rookie of the week for the Bills this week. So I'm excited to see him. I hope that they utilize him. They should still be able to run the ball against this defense. And I really hope that they do a lot of it under center so that they can maybe even utilize play action a little bit more and get Josh Allen into rhythm like we've been able to see him do when the run game's been successful and when they utilize play action correctly. So I'm excited to see Ray Davis, even Ty Johnson. I love Ty Johnson as well, but again, like Scott said, I don't know if he's equipped to touch the ball 15 times a game. I just don't know if that's really his style, and if he's even more of he's not a pure running back in my opinion. He's more of a kind of like a tool in that offense where you can utilize him in a bunch of different type of ways. You see him out of the backfield, you do see him in between the tackles, you actually see him more outside the tackles on his runs. So I'm excited to see Ray Davis. I hope that he gets the bulk of the carries, but either way, I think both guys should have success running, and maybe that we do see a little bit of Frank Gore Jr. this Sunday, maybe in a snap or two if they do call him up. I'm assuming they probably will call him up just due to the injury to Cook. You always like to have at least 3 running backs there. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. I hope that they utilize Ray Davis. But on to the next one before we do our who needs to step up and who will be the offensive MVP. We talked about no Cook, but it's also looking like Shakir won't play. Mac Hollins, as John said a little bit earlier, he's been limited in practice. So what do the Bills need to do, and how can they make it easier for these guys on these offensive weapons to get involved? I mean, it's not even just how can they get them involved? How can they make it easier for these guys to get involved? Like Keon Coleman, we just mentioned Ray Davis, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Just what can they do? We'll start with you. We'll start with you, Lance. How can they help this core and these weapons just make it easier for them to play football and be effective on this offense?
Yeah, again, I'm gonna go back to the whole the usage, but it's more so like play calling out of the gate. 1 of 9 to start the game last week. It's like, just get something easy going for this guy. We have enough personnel to be able to throw some quick passes to get people going. Josh Allen being number 1, but then other guys, Curtis Samuel has skill in this league, and that just don't know why he's so seemingly underutilized in routes past the line of scrimmage. Like, he gets plenty behind and things like that, but when you go run the route out past the line of scrimmage, you don't. And then Dawson Knox ran 11 routes last week and didn't get a single target. So there's those as well. He was at least one play. I thought Allen could have found him and didn't have the lane maybe necessarily. So going to go back again to the offensive line, hopefully creating some passing lanes, creating the room for Josh Allen to be able to step up and find someone. It's a little bit of everything. When the receivers are getting separation, it seems like Allen doesn't have the ability to find them for multiple reasons, whether it's indecision or whether it may be lack of throwing lanes. So that's really what I want to see. I don't think that the personnel, the receivers and things are as major of an issue as people want to say they are. I agree that the talent there would be nice to improve, but at the same time, he's got to have the throwing lanes to get these guys the ball, and then the play calling's got to be a little bit better to get these guys into quick rhythm type of throws. I know Josh Allen's not necessarily the quick rhythm passer type, and he's going to have the propensity to hold the ball. We talked about that, but I just think we have to start doing that, or it's just not going to work out very well.
Yeah, no Shakir, I would say, worries me maybe a little bit more than no James Cook, just based on how bad it looked last week. So yeah, like you said, Lance, like they're gonna have to use guys in different spots than they have been. Like Curtis Samuel, let's see him run some routes down the field. Like he's a good downfield receiver. And the thing that keeps like really confusing me is that he had his best season of his career in Carolina with Joe Brady as his OC. So like you would think that Joe Brady knows how to use him better than anybody, but they haven't. And then like I said this in our chat, like they're kind of it seems like they're trying to have Mac Hollins play the role of Gabe Davis in this offense of being like the downfield receiver threat, and like that's just not his specialty. Like he's a big body, he's a physical guy. Like that drag he ran across the middle where like they ran the crossers, they got caught up in the wash, and he gets in open field on something quick. Like have him blocking for screens, have him doing those like big body catches, like the thing they threw to MVS on the outside, the comeback route. Like put Matt Collins out there. Like he's bigger and probably stronger than the guy guarding him. So yeah, like just getting more creative with how they use people and putting them in better spots. Like give MVS some routes down the field. He's really fast and great downfield receiver. And last year, like you and I talked about this, Ben, he ended the Bills season with a play downfield, and he sent the Chiefs to the Super Bowl on a play downfield. So like we know that he can do it. Like get Keon Coleman lined up in some different spots. Like he's not the kind of receiver, especially not now as a rookie, who's going to beat a corner, especially one like Sauce Gardner, if that's who his matchup is. He's not going to beat him just like straight up off the line in something quick. Like they get more creative with how you get him the ball. Like bring Keon in motion, line him up around all over the field. He's been mostly outside, like you talked about, Ben, running no route tree. I wouldn't even call it a route, like a route stick. Like he isn't really running any routes except for the occasional go and the occasional comeback. So yeah, like get guys the ball in different ways. They're going to have to get the ball out quick, like we talked about, because the Jets have a good passing game. If they can figure out how to run a screen, like it seems like this would be a team it would work against, but they haven't quite mastered that one yet. It's only been 6 or 7 years of this. So yeah, they're going to have to get guys the ball in different spots, have them do different things than they've been doing, because it kind of seems like the rest of the league caught up to the whole everybody eats thing and has taken away what they know we want to do. So now like the league has figured it out. Now we got to change it up. Like that's how this league works.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to see him become less predictable. That's the number one thing. I mean, we talked about it. Scott, I was saying it in the chat on Sunday after the game a million times. And I believe it was Stokes, James Stokes, I believe he was the one that came and saw the stat of 14 out of 16 or 14 runs out of 16 first downs, I think that it was that we've ran. The defenses were, especially towards the end of the game in the second half, they were seeing it coming from a mile away. And that was the thing I think that switched in a lot of the game was they would run the ball on first down, and even they would run it on second and long too. Then you're set up and you're already hurting yourself because you're in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. You're already beat. You can't do that 4 times a drive. You can't do that even 3 times a drive on the regular. I know you have Josh Allen, and I know you trust him on 3rd down, but you're not going to win football games if you shoot yourself in the foot by pushing yourselves back on the chains and getting yourselves in a position where you're having to force Josh Allen to make these plays and be Superman. We talk about it all the time we love seeing Superman Josh, but there's a point of letting Josh be Superman and forcing him to be Superman. And I feel like that's what we've been seeing a lot, especially on 3rd downs. It just comes down to nobody's getting open. Josh needs to try to find someone. He's got to roll out. He's got to run around. He's got to just do something, and nothing's coming open. So as much as I love the run game, and I do want them to lean on the run game, it's got to become less predictable. throw the ball a little bit more on first down, and it doesn't even have to be a big play. Get 3 yards on a pass play just to even keep them on edge. It doesn't have to be anything big. But when you run the ball 14 out of 16 times on first down, that's a problem. And then when you are running the ball on second and long constantly as well, that's another problem. So as much
Well,
as
they got to figure out what short passing game they can do to get 3 yards, because it seems like even the swing passes and the screens, they can't necessarily block it up well enough to even get the 3 yards. So that's where, I think Scott talked about Dawson Knox being utilized in a little bit different position where he can come down and block some guys, and maybe Kincaid's not really cut out for that role. And so not sure if you talked about it on the show or if it was just our conversation earlier, but either way, those are the kind of things you need to figure out, because it's like we run these simple little plays where Allen gets the ball out quick, and they just don't seem to go anywhere because this can't seem to be blocked up properly. So I don't know if, the defense is keying on that, as Scott mentioned, taking away the things that we want to do there. But we've got to show them one thing and do something else, like we do so well with our defense, where we show them something and then move into something else. And we're just not doing that on offense at all. And the window dressing and the motion stuff, just people aren't paying attention to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, like you said it earlier, Ben, just like other teams don't respect our receivers, so they're not giving them any kind of like a bubble, or like there's no one on the Bills offense right now who you're going to play 10 yards off of, because you don't have to. Like, you're not running by me. You're not going to route me up. Like, I'm going to be right in your face. And a lot of times those quick hitters, they happen when you got 10 yards of space, and Josh just says, like, thank you very much. Like, take what they give me. But yeah, I don't know if they're getting that look. So,
and then when we get one, it goes off the guy's face mask, and the Keon Coleman play there, it was, a miscommunication. So
yeah, I think that one was a run play. Like, if you watch how the line blocked, I think Josh just saw the matchup and thought he would see it too, and they're not quite there yet. But hopefully,
that's all part of it, right? Is trying to get that whole synergy and try to get these, like, nothing's easy, because they're just not. There's something they've got to gel. Like, this is not a surprise, because it's like you got a rookie guy out here with a quarterback who has mastered what he sees, and they have to get on the same page. That's not a surprise. It's just a matter of like a frustration now of like, okay, now we're 5 weeks in. We've played, I don't know. Do you say we've only played 2 good teams? Because it's like at week 2, everyone was still thinking Miami was a decent team, and then we crushed them, and now all of a sudden they suck. So it's like, when we played them, I think that they were still a decent team. But yeah. And then the Jaguars, I'm hesitant to call a bad team, although they haven't played well, but they do have some personnel there that makes you think like they could be decent. And then obviously the Ravens and the Texans. So I don't know. It's tough right now for me to really say that they've beaten anybody. But the last 2 opponents have certainly had a heck of a defensive effort, and they've figured some things out here, and the Bills certainly need to make those adjustments, like you mentioned.
And I don't want to go too much longer, because I know that we've been on the offense for a little bit, but I'm seeing like a lot of comments about pre-snap motion as well. And the thing is like we've been kind of saying, the defenses aren't respecting the pre-snap motion. The Ravens were the first team to do it this year. They didn't move a muscle anytime we ran pre-snap motion, so that they weren't given anything, because they were saying, we don't care. Do whatever you want pre-snap motion-wise. We're going to run our defense, and we're going to test you. And that's forcing the Bills to utilize the quick passing game, but their screens, they're quick dumps to the running back. They're not getting guys downfield and letting other guys, like when you look at the last drive of the game, I know everybody hated that they threw passes, but that was an example of where it actually came open underneath. It was you had 2 guys on the outside going deep, brought everybody deep, linebackers dropped, and you had 2 guys underneath. But you're not seeing that, I think, a lot when it comes to this offense. You're seeing more of get the ball to Samuel right away, see what he can do, or get the ball to Cook out of the backfield right away and see what he can do if he has blockers in front of him. But when you have corners and you have a defense that's challenging these receivers already and playing up, they're already up on the line of scrimmage. That's not going to work, because they're already challenging the receivers to get open, let alone make a block each and every down. You might get 1 or 2 plays that work, but then you're going to get beat eventually, and somebody's going to get through and make a tackle. So I said it in the chat. I'm sick of seeing these screen passes, because they're not working. They're not working at all. We haven't been a screen team since LaShawn McCoy was on this team. And I don't know what it is about this offense, but we cannot run a screen. And you got to do something to help this quick pass game, because the quick passing games right now is not working. So we'll see what they do, but they definitely have a million ways that they can improve this offense. Maybe it is because it's early in the year that they're still testing some things out and seeing what's going on. But you're 3-2 now. It's a must-win game. You have to get your guys into position to succeed, and I think that they should do that this week. And I think it starts with somebody that a lot of people have been talking about. It starts with a guy like Dawson Knox, getting him involved in this offense, especially in that quick passing game. Just get the ball in his hands, let him get 4 or 5, right? Just let him fall forward. So we'll see. Anybody got any last things before we do who needs to step up and who will be the offensive MVP?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll just get right into it then. I'm just going to say mine pretty quickly. Step up. It's not even a player this week. I think it needs to be Joe Brady. He's got to be better this week. The predictability the predictability percentage needs to go down. That's the number one thing. I've been saying it all day. And then the offensive MVP, I'm going to go with Ray Davis. I think he's going to have a good game. I think he's going to prove that the Bills took him for a reason, and he can be a very good complement to James Cook. And when James Cook comes back, Ray Davis should still be getting the ball a solid amount once James Cook comes back. So I'm going to go Ray Davis, offensive MVP, who needs to step up. I think it's got to be Joe Brady in his predictability. Let's go with Scott next.
My step up, just Josh Allen. Can't have another 9 for 30. Like, we need you, dog. Like, this is your team. This is your offense. We knew it was going to be tough, but these are the games that you got to go win in the division. MVP, I'm going to go with Kincaid. Obviously, the strength of the Jets defense, like we talked about, probably their secondary. Kincaid maybe can work the middle of the field a little bit against some of the linebackers who are a little bit slower than him, like C.J. Mosley, more of a run defender than he is more better in coverage. So love to see Kincaid get some more stuff going in the middle of the field, and maybe Knox helps pull some stuff in the middle of the field off of him. Maybe they use him. Maybe they remember he's on the team. I saw the highlight of the Chiefs game a few years ago where Knox went for like 120. Like, that wasn't that long ago. So maybe, more 21 personnel and we get both of them on the field.
Yeah, I'd like, to Kincaid to be able to step up in the point of, drops. I think, it's been 1 or 2 per game, it seems like. So, in some moments. But overall, I think, like I mentioned before, a guy like Osiris Torrance and David Edwards and that interior offensive line, really I have to go with the offensive line stepping up, because the Jets, like you mentioned, are very good at pass rushing, and like the way that the Bills are unable to pass guys off, it seems, on some pressures is a little bit concerning, but it is a little bit new. You have Connor McGovern moved over with David Edwards there. Osiris Torrance has looked lost at some points, so we just have to have that button and be able to give Josh a little bit more of a cleaner pocket, so he's not bailing so quickly. And I agree with Scott. I think the MVP here has got to be Dalton Kincaid as well. So I think that he's going to have to be the stud. He's the number 1 pick. He's out there. He's got to go out and ball out this week.
Yeah, so that's going to bring it to Scott's 1 minute now, which, on Sundays, you've been waiting all day for Sunday Night Football. I've been waiting all day to hear Scott's 1 minute. I'm ready for it. And I'm going to have to contain myself after Scott's 1 minute here, but I'm excited. Scott, take it over. It's all you.
Yeah, so there was a lot of talk this week after the Bills' loss about play calling and decision making, and you should have challenged that, and you should have challenged this. And when we slow it down and have 3 days to look at it, it looks like he got an elbow in. But when you have 40-second play clock and you're not even the one looking at the replay, it's really hard to decide if you challenge something or not. So my thing is, for all the people out there saying that the Bills need to fire Sean McDermott after every single loss, just stop. It's lazy, it's ignorant, and it isn't like really an educated football take. Like, is Sean McDermott the best option to coach this team to bring him to a Super Bowl? I don't know. I genuinely don't. But he's what we got, and he's been one of the best coaches in the NFL for as long as he's been here. He took a team that for my entire lifetime until he came, they were nothing. Like, they were what the Sabres are now that everybody jokes about. And Has there been some bumps along the road? Of course, 13 seconds is really tough. This past game, even, like, maybe, he could have done something better. But hindsight is always 2020. And guess what? If some of the stuff that he did worked, everybody would have been saying, what a great call it was. Should they make a move at head coach after this season if the season doesn't go the way that they think it should? Maybe. Like, it's definitely something that's possible. And I'm in no means getting on my soapbox to defend Sean McDermott and saying that he's the best coach in the NFL. No, but just like, it's not always the coach's fault. You can always blame players. You can always blame this. So just, relax with it. He's a good football coach. He's a damn good football coach. Let's just know that, not everything is going to be perfect. Not everything is going to work, but just like cut the guy some slack, because calling for his job, like, let me tell you, like, the grass ain't always greener. I'll end it with that.
Yeah, I love that, dude. You guys know, and I put out a bunch of posts already on X and things like that about being behind this team. And look, I just think if the Bills win on Monday night and you go after your first 6 games 4-2, everybody would have taken that. Everyone would have said like 4-2 after that first 6 games was going to be a good place for the Bills to be. But now they're 3-2 and it's 2 in a row, so they're all freaking out. It's like, no, like, that's kind of where we saw this going, is like, it's not but it's how he lost. I get it. Well, how he lost was, in my opinion, because the players are getting the play calls that they like now. That's what I'm told. Now Joe Brady's offense is calling the plays the players like, but now you want McDermott to override. It's bigger than that. McDermott has now put these people into positions to take control of certain aspects of the game, and those people failed on last Sunday. And that's just the yes, he could have stepped in and said, run the ball. I agree. I'm not disagreeing that Sean McDermott doesn't have fault. I'm just disagreeing with everyone saying he can't coach, he can't bring us to the Super Bowl, he should be fired. Like, all that stuff is nonsense. He's a great coach. He's a great leader of men. He's exactly what this team needed and still needs. And look, it took Andy Reid 20 years of head coaching before he had any breakthrough on a Super Bowl. He did make it to the game, but he didn't win until 20 years of being a head coach. It takes time to progress, to make these certain mistakes, to learn from them and continue to, and it also takes a little bit of luck with your personnel, I'm sure. So, like, it takes a perfect storm to win a Super Bowl, and to say that McDermott's the lone reason they haven't and that he's going to be the reason they don't in the future is just nonsense. And I think that this organization is going in a great direction right now because of guys like Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and company. So we want to win every game. We're a very passionate fan base. I understand that, but we got to relax with trying to call for somebody's job, because who are you going to bring in to replace them? And there's no guarantee whatsoever that that guy comes in and can take this team any further than they've already gone.
Yeah, and I look back at 2 weeks ago was the first time the Buffalo Bills have lost by more than 6 points. What was it, 48 games in a row? It was
since the Colts game in 2021.
Yeah. And yeah, like, I just think sometimes, and I get it as a fan. I mean, I do it. Everybody does it. You're a fan of a team. You look more at your team than everybody else. But if you look around the league, if you watch every game, if you watch just even one other game, you will realize that every coach has an issue and every coach has faults. Whether it's Andy Reid, whether it's Kyle Shanahan, whether it's whoever you want to bring up, somebody has faults, and Sean McDermott has his. But like you guys have said, what are you going to do right now if you fire Sean McDermott? Even if after the season, who says that the guy you bring in isn't going to be significantly worse? I mean, you see it time after time. Even the hot commodity that gets brought in by a team sometimes is the worst hire there is. I mean, even when Sean McDermott was hired that year, he was one of the worst hires according to analysts that year. And I believe he's the only one of 2 that are still on the team that got hired the year he did. So, I mean, I get the frustration, but you have to also just look at the bigger picture and say, well, what do I want from this team and what's going to be the best for this team? This team, you can blame Brandon Beane, you can blame Sean McDermott, but they've been the second winningest team in the terms of regular season and even playoffs. They've been in top 5 since they've both taken over. Like, they are a winning football team with those 2 at the helm running this team. This year, yeah, it might look a little bit different, but it's the first time in how many years that we've been able to say, hey, this team looks different. And you had a lot of change. You had a lot of change on both sides of the football, and there's still a team that teams should fear and do fear, right? So it's, to me, sometimes I think people got to make up their minds on what they want, right? So sometimes it's, well, Sean McDermott gets too involved. Well, then he's not involved enough. And then he's doing this wrong. But then if he does, it's just, you got to make up your mind on what you want from your coach, what you want to as a fan. So do you want Sean McDermott to be involved in every decision? Do you want him to give the reins to a guy like Joe Brady, who everybody loves, but nobody wants to blame? Everybody loves Josh Allen. Nobody wants to blame him. You got to, I think, sometimes make up the mind of what you are looking for. And for me, it's always been Sean McDermott. I look at what the defense does, and yeah, he does have his faults. He does need to get better in some areas. But like I said, there's coaches around the league, and the one that we always talked about, we talked about a lot on Sunday and Monday, was even Kyle Shanahan. Top-tier coach in the league. I guarantee a lot of people love him. He's one of the worst coaches ever at coaching from behind. Even holding a lead, he's blown leads countless times. People have faults. Coaches have faults. Sean McDermott is a great coach. And yes, I think you should ask the best out of him. But at the end of the day, these guys are all humans. The players are humans. The coaches are humans. The GM's human. Everybody's human. They make mistakes, and they do things that are wrong. And at the end of the day, this team's been a winning football team, and they still are a winning football team. And I expect them to be a playoff team this year and even win one playoff game.
Yeah, I think it's not about assigning blame, because he's got blame and things. It's just about going overboard to saying he should lose his job, or we should move on, or this or that, and he can't win, or the Super Bowl and things like that. I think going that far is where we're not ignorant to that he's to blame for some things with this team, but he's definitely not due to lose his job or anything.
Yeah, no coach is a Super Bowl winning coach until they win a Super Bowl. And I think like every single power ranking of NFL coaches this past offseason had Mike McDaniel ranked higher than Sean McDermott. He's like 1-7 against Sean McDermott, hasn't won a playoff game, hasn't even like really come close to winning a playoff game. So I think definitely a lot of, obviously, like the Bills have Super Bowl aspirations, but it's one of those things like you don't necessarily realize like how good what you have is until you got to look around a little bit and see that like no one's as consistent as he's been. And like I said, is he the best option to coach this team? I don't know, but all I know is that the body of work that he has put up, I think the guy has earned some leeway on some things that, when things don't go our way. Because you know what? If they would have run the ball 3 times and still lost, everybody would have said, why the hell didn't you have Josh Allen throw the football? He's the whole team. But like, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it's easy to judge based afterwards. But yeah. I think the guy has just earned some grace.
Yeah, we got a lot of viewers on X right now. I'd love if you guys came over to YouTube or Facebook to get on the comments and maybe subscribe to that YouTube channel. Hit that like button, like I said, and the subscribe, share with your friends. Appreciate that. Shout
out Kevin hopping in the chat.
Thank you, Kevin.
And I will say, last thing about this is we're not talking about Marvin Lewis here, right? Sean McDermott's won playoff games actually, so we'll see. And yeah, like Scott said, we don't know. We don't know if he's the guy. We'll see. But at the end of the day, he is our football coach, and he's the one leading this team. But all right, that's enough though. Sean McDermott talk. I know that's been the hot topic this whole entire kind of week and the past little bit. But we do still have a game this weekend, and we talked about the Bills' offense. But now it's time to talk about the Bills' defense. The Jets. Lance, you were going to start this one. You talked about how they have a new play caller now. Nathaniel Hackett is not calling the plays this week. Bills fans are far too familiar with Nathaniel Hackett, and I think a lot of fans were hoping that they would keep Hackett as the play caller. But now it's going to be Todd Downing. Can you use any of the tendencies from before? Do you think that this offense will be a complete switch? Because you've seen offensive coordinator switch. You saw it with the Bills last year. And yeah, there was some switch, but it's not going to be night and day right away. So what do you think, Lance? Do you think that you can kind of look at the tape and still say, yeah, this is what we should expect? Or do you think they should kind of play it a little bit by ear here?
I think it lends itself to Aaron Rodgers just kind of taking over. And I'm not sure he wasn't already. Nathaniel Hackett's a terrible coach. He's just, like, I don't understand how teams still hire him. He did terrible at Syracuse, did terrible in Buffalo. And his only fame is when he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, and that's because Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, not because he's a great coach. His dad was a great coach, but he's not. And so I think that Todd Downing can probably make some adjustments, but I think it's going to be that whole thing of, doing something in a week when you've already got something installed is going to be very difficult. So he has that Joe Brady kind of rule from last year still, where it's like, okay, you've got this playbook to work with, but you can't necessarily implement a full new playbook there. And I expect him to lean on Aaron Rodgers much more heavily to make adjustments. I'm not sure Rodgers wasn't already controlling the offense fully anyway, but we'll see, to answer your question more directly, I would say that the tendencies from before probably won't be able to be used moving forward, because I think they'll, by design, try to change it up because they haven't scored many points last few weeks, and they're going to need to do that.
Yeah, so Todd Downing, the last time he was calling plays was in Tennessee. Obviously, they had Derrick Henry, so you're going to run the ball a lot, but they were first in rushing this first year and then 11th the second year. So I think with him coming in, taking over midway through the season, obviously it's not going to be a completely new offense because he's been there and had his fingerprints on it, but I think it's going to be pretty basic. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot. We talk about it a little bit later, but the Jets' rush offense is last in the league. So when they have Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I think they're going to try to run the ball. So that's what he did when he was in Tennessee. And I think it's going to be pretty basic. So not a whole lot of crazy stuff going on, just because, he is still kind of getting comfortable with what he likes and what Aaron Rodgers likes. And, Rodgers is going to change stuff at the line anyway. But I am mostly concerned. Are they still going to call the red zone the gold zone? Because that was Nathaniel Hackett's thing. Austin Powers gold member. Red zone was the gold zone. So that's what I want to know. Is that still going to be what it's called? Because I don't want him to get confused.
Yeah, Todd Downing seeing Derrick Henry run all over the Bills for the Ravens probably gives him a pretty good idea of things. But we'll see. We'll see how that Bills defense looks, because they are a little bit banged up, and we'll see who comes back. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But yeah, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, you're just saying somebody's coming back. Yeah, Teron Johnson should be back, and if there's any game, it's the clutch one that he comes back against the Jets, because you're going to need guys that are going to be able to make plays and make tackles against the run, like Scott just said, because they probably will lean on it, because these receivers have not been on the same page with Rodgers, and now that you have a new coordinator or new play caller, who knows how much they'll even be on the same page, if it will get even worse now. So I'm interested to see how he calls this game. It is another reason why, again, you kind of hope that they would have waited to make this coaching change, because now you're kind of in that situation of, well, are they going to completely change everything of how the style that they're going to call? Obviously, the playbook's going to stay pretty much the same, but are they going to change up the style of offense that they have? We'll see. I do think the Bills, though, I think they'll have Sean McDermott will have them ready, I think, for whatever comes their way. You just hope that at least against the run, they can take advantage and be good against the run. I saw a lot from Dwayne Carter last week. Liked what I saw from him. You get Terrell Bernard, who made a good impact, which we're going to talk about in a second. And if you get Teron Johnson back, that's an even bigger boost. So we'll see what happens with Downing and how he calls the Jets offense. But that does bring us to our next point here of Teron Johnson should be back. Terrell Bernard came back, had the interception on a phenomenal play on a ball targeted to Diggs, which I think a lot of Bills fans were happy to see. And then Ed Oliver's probably out still, which, again, step up for Dwayne Carter. He had a good game last week. I'm excited to see him again this week. So how are you guys feeling about the defense? I'm just going to say my thoughts real quick. The defense, to me, even with the injuries, has been a bright spot of this team. I mean, you were concerned coming into this year, a lot of us, about Dorian Williams, about Balin Spector, about just guys stepping up. And yeah, they haven't been perfect by any means, but they've been very solid. And even against Houston, it was 14-3 at the end of the first. They allow 6 points until the last second of the rest of the game. And you could even blame that, like we said, on maybe field positioning on the punt. So it's again, this defense, I think, stepping up. People are stepping up. And this defense, even when they look like they're going to have a horrible game, they do somehow turn it around and kind of just make the best of it. Even against the Ravens, I thought the defense didn't play that bad. I think they were put into positions that didn't exactly help them. So I'm excited to see the defense, especially with a guy like Teron Johnson, who is a all-pro level player that you're getting back. I think that's going to be a huge boost for this defense. So we'll start with you, Lance. What do you think about the defense? Or actually, we'll start with you, Scott, since we were on the Lance last time. Scott, what do you think? Are you feeling better about the defense now, especially with Tron coming back?
Yeah, I feel a lot better about it. And like you said, like they didn't play bad with, the second string out there in a lot of positions. Like the Ravens game kind of just throw that one out. They gave up a lot of points. The offense didn't help. Like it was just like throw that one out. Like every other game, they played really well. And yeah, the interception, like you mentioned by Bernard, like he carries the tight end across the field, turns around, just it's like almost like Spidey senses, could tell that like Diggs was on the other side. I don't even know if he saw him, and then just turns and immediately bolts to where the ball is going, like all kind of with his back to the play, which is pretty incredible, and like the kind of play that like not many other guys in this league make. And then you mentioned it targeted to Diggs. Did you see how excited Cam Lewis was to get up and block him? Like they went after it even after the whistle. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, Taron Johnson being back is big too, because Cam Lewis did a fine job, but Taron is much better against the run than Cam Lewis is. And then in coverage, it's not really that close either. But I think they are going to miss Ed Oliver, though. Dwayne Carter played really well. But like we mentioned, if the Jets are going to try to run the ball, Braylon Allen's a big bruising back. Breece Hall been more of a speed guy, as we know. But I think they will miss Ed in this game. And they haven't really said a whole lot about a timeline for him, which is a little bit worrisome. Hamstrings tend to nag, but yeah, hopefully Dwayne Carter picks up where he left off last week.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about this before you go, Scott, as well, is also Johnson coming back again as well. The other Johnson coming back for Dean is going to be big as well. So Kevin there with the double Johnsons coming back in for big upgrades. But yeah, sorry, Lance, go ahead.
All good, but Taylor Rapp's coming back as well. So I like to obviously Taron Johnson's a big notable guy here. I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best player on this defense at times. Maybe Milano gets that, but he's been hurt too. So Taron Johnson just has been a staple here. He gives the defense the ability to do so many different things with his ability, because he can play sort of like a linebacker, but he's also a very good cover nickel. So that versatility out of that spot on this defense really gives Sean McDermott a lot more versatility and can do more things. And then Taylor Rapp coming on back on as well kind of gets rid of the rookie Cole Bishop being in there, which was not super favorable in my opinion for the Bills defense. So he definitely needs to get his snaps in there in Cole Bishop, but just him being a rookie, I think is what it is.
Yeah, he and Rasul were definitely not on the same page in that long touchdown to Nico Collins. It looked like Rasul thought that Cole had that zone down the field. Cole thought that Rasul had it, and then it's never a good thing when before the guys even in the end zone, the corners looking back yelling at the safety like, "Where the F were you?" So yeah, communication there was struggled. So maybe Rapp helps with that.
Yeah. So we're going to actually just go on to then who needs to step up the most and who is going to be the defensive MVP. So we had our offense. Now it's on to our defense here. I went first on the offense with the defensive MVP and who needs to step up the most. I believe Lance went last for that one. So we're going to have Lance go first and give who needs to step up the most for on the defensive side. Who's going to be the defensive MVP? So what do you got for us, Lance?
Stepping up, I got to have Greg Rousseau a little bit here. He had the 3 sacks in one game, I believe, and then nothing. He's not been terrible, but I just, I need that. I need him to produce and get a sack and get some stuff on the stat sheet because it's going to help a ton. And I'm not saying he's been terrible. He's got a certain role that he plays at different times, but he's got it. We talked about taking that step, and he just hasn't necessarily gone and been able to step to go and be that game wrecker type that we talked about. We really need that sort of person, especially with Von Miller out, and obviously just no one else to really play the role. So I think Greg Rousseau's got to step up, and I think Taron Johnson comes back with Terrell Bernard, and I'm going to take Taron Johnson to be the MVP of the defense coming right back.
Yeah, I was going to pick Rousseau. I saw something our guy Dave said today. He compared Rousseau to Gabe Davis. Said that he has a big game and then he disappears for a while. I thought that was kind of funny and kind of accurate. 3 sacks in week 1, nothing since. So need to think of a new guy to step up on the fly. I'm going to go with the safeties, both of them, whoever it is. Taylor Rapp and Hamlin, Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop and Hamlin, whoever they are. Like, they've struggled the past 2 weeks. They've struggled in the run game, struggled in coverage. I know it tightened up a little bit, not a little bit, tightened up a lot in the second half against the Texans, but especially when it's not the same guys out there weeks in a row because of the injury and it's new guys starting as a whole. It's like to see the safety step up a bit. And then as far as MVP, this week I'm going to go with Daquan Jones. He was my call to step up last week. I think he did that. He played really well. If the Jets are going to try to run the ball like we think they might, him just being a big body in the middle, eating blocks, making the occasional play, I think is going to be big. So I think Daquan Jones is going to have a good game. He showed flashes last week, played a lot better. I think this is the week where maybe we get him back.
Yeah, for who needs to step up, I'm actually going to go with two guys on the defensive line. I'm going to go with Daquan Jones just because, again, Ed Oliver is going to be out. It's looking as though you're going to have him step up against a team that probably will look to run the ball. And another guy that's been very quiet this season, who I think people had a little bit of higher expectations for, and, you didn't hear much about him in camp, at least making highlight plays, and you haven't really heard his name much this year, is A.J. Epinesa. He's been a guy who now with Von Miller out really, I think, needs to step up. You saw Dwayne Smoot have some solid plays and make some great plays the last game. So he's a guy that you've heard his name more than you've heard A.J. Epenesa's, which is not something you love to see. And I was a guy who I really wanted Epinesa back here. I like Epinesa, but he's been a little bit quiet to start the season, so I think he needs to kind of get himself going. Defensive MVP, I'm going to go with Dorian Williams. He's been a guy that I think shocked a lot of people so far this season. Not a lot of guys had confidence in him. He kind of reminds me of how Terrell Bernard was looked at going into the last season. People were not confident in him. They were still skeptical of him. I'm still not 100% sold on Dorian Williams, at least overall as a player. I think he's a very good player, but I'm not sold on him being a full-time starter. But he's played well. He leads the league in tackles, and he flies across the football field. You heard his name a lot on last game, and I think you'll hear it a lot again this game, especially if the Jets do run the ball. I think he'll make some plays. So I'm going to go with for Daquan Jones. A.J. Epinesa needs to step up. And then Dorian Williams, I think, will be the defensive MVP. Maybe he forces a fumble. We'll see. But, I've liked how he's played this year so far.
Yeah, is it bad that every time someone has said that Dorian leads the league in tackles, my first thought is imagine how much he'd be winning by if he didn't whiff so much?
That is true. That is true. And he does – look, he's played well, but, he does need to kind of clean up the missed tackles at some points. Because, part of it, I think, is he's just moving – a million miles per hour, sometimes faster than his own body can, that when he goes to wrap up, it's just like he bounces off the guy and just misses the tackle. But man, that was the one thing I loved about him coming out of college is he flies across the field and he's given 100% effort all the time. So we'll see how he does though this weekend or this Monday night. Sorry, it's not a weekend. But that's going to bring us to our last 1 minute here for Lance. So Lance, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, this week I kind of dived into some of the film on Josh Allen being pressured because his pressure statistics are not very good. He's only completing 36.4% of his passes with an NFL rating of 69.8. He only has 2 touchdowns, which both came against the Jaguars. And what I saw, in my opinion, was that the offensive line, mainly the interior offensive line, has to step up and be better to prevent some of these pressures. And that the second thing, Allen holds the ball a little bit too long at times, creating the pressure. Play designs kind of lend themselves to inviting pressure at times, and that has led to unsuccessful. And then the fourth is executing when Allen does get the ball out in tight windows. Guys got to come up with the catches. So I just want to get your opinions as well, maybe what you've seen when Josh Allen is pressured and what's led to this offense being susceptible to such pressure to get them off of their mark, because they haven't been successful at all, really, when Josh Allen is pressured, whether it's via the blitz or not. And I think some of the blitzes or some of the pressures that I saw were just 4-man rushes, but they were confusing the offensive line. So my vote for the 4 options I gave is that the offensive line, needs to be able to pass guys off better. They need to be able to pick up different games that the defense may be playing to help avoid some of the pressure. Because when Allen's kept clean, he is one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best in the league, and he's still been very effective so far. I think second overall in EPA per dropback this year. So still has a lot of talent and still has the ability to make plays even with that receiving core. So just a matter to me of getting some of these blocking schemes cleaned up and getting some of these defenders passed off and picked up to give the Bills a little bit more success.
I'm going to sound like a broken record because I pretty much am at this point when it comes to what I'm thinking for this offense, but it's going to come down to the predictability of this offense. Teams are teeing off on the offensive line on Josh Allen, knowing what's coming a lot of the time, whether it's against the run or the pass. And it's a lot easier to blitz when you know that they're going to have to throw the ball because it's 3rd and 6, it's 3rd and 8, it's whatever it is. That's the number one thing to me is you just have to switch it up. And if that means you have to throw the ball more, do it. I know everybody's saying lean on the run. Leaning on the run does not mean you get away from the passing game. I know, everybody knows that in some extent, but it seems like we are getting away from the passing game. It sometimes seems like we're afraid to throw the ball early down sometimes. So I think you got to get a little bit less predictable, get the play action game going a little bit and force them to be honest and keep it honest here and say, well, don't let the defense get comfortable saying, hey, we see this look. We know this is coming on 1st down or 2nd down or whatever down you're looking at. You just got to get the predictability a little bit less noticeable. And you really just, I think, have to utilize Josh Allen's strengths. What is that? That's play action. And that's him being able to just be him. And part of that also might mean telling Josh, hey, just sit in the pocket for a half second longer sometimes as well, and just sit in there and sometimes take a hit while you're throwing the ball. We know Josh can do it. We know he's got the arm strength, but we're seeing a lot of plays as well come open just as Josh is rolling out, just as Josh starts to take off. So that to me is the number one. I've been saying it all game or all show, just the predictability's got to go down. We've been one of the more predictable offenses, and I do think the part of that is, again, just Joe Brady's figuring out what he likes the best and what he wants to utilize with this offense. But we're starting to get to that time. It's week 6, 7, 8. We're starting to get to that time where we need to figure it out. Scott, you're muted.
Been hanging out with Lance too much. Yeah, obviously, like Lance said, the O-line has to communicate better, like pick stuff up. Josh is getting a lot of pressure up the middle, as you alluded to, with McGovern's bad pass blocking rate. Like, that needs to get fixed. That's like the toughest spot for a quarterback to have pressure from, because it's really hard to throw when you're throwing, into the pressure. But another thing I think it is too, and we saw it on the Keon Coleman one that hit him in the back of the head, and like I don't think that's all Coleman's fault, because like we said, that wasn't the play design, but just Josh and these receivers, they don't necessarily share a brain yet. Like at the end of, the seasons past with Diggs, he'd been there a long time. Gabe Davis had been there a long time. Shakir, they kind of have that connection, but he wasn't there last week. He probably isn't there this week. And when the pressure is coming, you got to get the ball out quick. Like that's when that matters so much, just like knowing what each other is going to do. So I think that chemistry will get there, but it's not quite there yet. So it's making, when they are getting pressure, they have to get the ball out quick. It's tough because they're just not quite on the same page just yet.
Yeah. I do believe, though, that is going to do it for us here. Let us know what you guys think as well, and what you guys have thought about it. We covered a lot today. It's been, we've usually been hovering around that 1 hour mark, and this week we're up almost at an hour and a half here. But yeah, you guys were awesome in the comments. Got a lot of different thoughts from you guys as well. So yeah, just let us know what you guys think about what we said here, and let us know what you guys want us to talk about next week as well. Obviously, we'll have a completely different game to talk about when it comes to previewing. We'll talk a little bit about the Jets, but that's more of the shows that are earlier in the week here for Built in Buffalo that we'll wrap them up and talk about the Jets game. But yeah,
what's your prediction for this week?
I know we got to wait till the end of the technical week for the last game of the week to watch this week. So enjoy your Sunday, though. enjoy some football, put Scott Hansen on your TV, and just enjoy 7 hours of commercial-free football. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. Lance, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, what do you got for a prediction real quick? And then we're also going to I need at least one good bet for this weekend from Scott so I can win some money.
You can go ahead, Ben.
I think it's gonna be a low scoring game. I'm gonna go like a 21-16 game, 21-17 game. I do think the Bills pull it out, but I think it will be one of those games that you see some progression, but you're still not happy with yet, at least on the offensive side. I think you'll still see some wrinkles, especially with James Cook out, with Khalil Shakir looking like he's going to be out. So I think it'll be low scoring, but I do think the Bills come out on top.
Yeah, this is one of those games in the division, third road game in a row, Jets firing their head coach. It's one of those games, like, you don't necessarily care how it looks. I mean, you do. You don't want it to be terrible, but just win. Like that's really all that matters. Get to 4-2, and then you got the Titans next week, which should be hopefully kind of a reset. But just win. I think it's ugly. These Jets-Bills games are always kind of rock fights. So I think the Bills win. I also think it's lower scoring. I'm going to go 20-17. I think Tyler Bass hits a big field goal, maybe get some of his swag back. And then non-Bills bet for you. I've been red hot with college football. If anybody's been following along the picks I've given out, I don't think I've lost on the show yet. Of course, now that I said this, probably fade me this week. But I like the Bama.
Missouri last week.
Well, yeah, but that was the one you gave out. I gave out Pitt, and I gave out another one that won. I have so many winners I can't even remember them all. My favorite bet tomorrow college is the over 50.5 in Bama and South Carolina.
I'm going to take whatever over of Ashton Gianti's rushing yards are. I know they go up every single week, but the man is unbelievable. So that's going to be my only one, and go Broncos.
I think he's minus 6,000 to score a touchdown and like minus 200 to score 3. He had 3 touchdowns. He hit the under on his total yards last week by 1 yard, and he played 0 snaps in the second half. Like, it's insane. He has over 1,000 yards in 5 games, and he hasn't played the second half in like 3 of them. It's nuts.
Might win the Heisman.
He should. With him and Travis Hunter, yeah.
I'm going to go 27-14 Bills win in New York. I haven't looked at any college spreads because I've been traveling all week, so I haven't gotten check into that, but I will look tomorrow morning and be texting Scott to say, hey, what do you think of this thing? I always like to look for like a home dog or something like that and see if I can get that plus money on a single bet. So yeah, that'll do it for us here at Triple Coverage. We appreciate everyone. Again, Buffalo Belia Sports and More, thanks to them for sponsoring us. Check out their Facebook page for great Bills memorabilia, custom signed pieces as like this helmet you see over my shoulder. And then the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo is Monster Energy Drink. So go out and grab yourselves some great Monster Energy. And shout out to the Big Tree Inn as well, who hosts us on game days. And we really appreciate being part of that with the Water Buffalo 716 Club and everything down there. So come see us at the Big Tree Inn for home games. We'd love to interact and give you some free swag and Monster. Otherwise, have a safe weekend. Go nuts on Sunday because you won't have anything to worry about. And let's get that win on Monday. So last thing to say here is go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.